Welcome back. Hey, Technical Brad here. Well, we're going to go ahead and put the flywheel housing back on Brownie, and it is sitting right down there. The first thing we want to do is we got to talk about what's behind the blue tape. And what is behind the blue tape, and the reason I got it taped up is because I didn't want dirt getting in it. That is the camshaft. And so what they do is they use an O-ring right around in here. This happens to be the original O-ring, and as you see, it's pretty thin. It's a lot thinner than it is wider from being mushroomed in there for well over 50 years. But it does fit in there pretty good. In other words, it holds itself in there. The replacement, well, it does not, of course. The original one, when you look it up, it comes in at 143 thousandths thick. This replacement came in at 139, 38, 39. So it's off, 4 or 5 thousandths there. But the problem with it is, unlike the original one that sticks in there, this one is not going to stick in there. By the time we get to banging around on this thing, putting this housing up, this thing's going to fall out. Now it is proud above the surface. You can feel that. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to use our Permatex high-tax sealant. We're going to put some of that on here to get it to stick in this groove so that we can put the housing up here and get it bolted on, because it's just not going to sit there very well. And it probably will help it seal in the long run anyway, which won't hurt anything. This thing measured in at, what did I say, 108 thousandths. So that's probably how deep this counter bore is here. Is going to be about 108 thousandths, because this, when we put it back in here, feels like it's pretty flush with the surface all the way around. So, after 50 years of being in there, it got kind of mushroomed, flattened out pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use this gasket. This came with the conversion kit. It does feel like it's proud of what we need it to be there, the surface. And the back of our housing is flat there too. It's machined. So you got 3 bolts here. That's supposed to seal. You're going to have oil in here because this is the back of the camshaft. Actually, there's an oil port right there. So you're going to have oil inside that cavity, and you don't obviously want the oil coming out of there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to seal this up with some Permatex and stick it in there. Here. But yeah, I don't know if we can see right here, there's a hole here where the pencil's going in. And that's part of the oil gallery. There's oil going to be going around this camshaft as it moves around there. But yeah, that just, it's not... If it was a bigger diameter, it would fit in there better. But they just, like I say, we've had so much trouble with O-rings of late that it's kind of aggravating. So what we will try to do here, put some of this right around in here. So that it'll help hold the O-ring in place. And maybe it'll actually help the thing to seal. And I'm getting it on the rest of the block there, but that probably won't hurt anything. Let me take our O-ring, and we can kind of push him in there where we want it to be, like so. just go back over that with more of this sealer. Yes, I don't think it'll hurt anything to be on the actual block surface here. I don't think it's going to hurt anything there. That should help the whole thing seal a little better. Of course, our cap up here is still holding. So we will get set up here to install the cover. So what I have here is a stud. Now this is a 3/8. These are 3/8 18 threads on all of our bolts around here. And I just took a bolt, I cut the head of it off. This is just kind of a locating pin. It will help to get this housing up there and lined up because it is kind of heavy. And it does have two dowels. We got two holes here and here, and there's a couple of dowels in the back of it here, but they don't stick out real far. One of them in particular doesn't stick out hardly at all. So it helps to kind of have this bolt there to line this thing up and get it started, because this thing isn't, it's not made out of cardboard, so it does weigh a bit. So we've got that sealer on there. That should be okay to seal that oil out. And we will lift this up here. All right. Yeah. And then we lift it on up and we put it on our stud here. We have a bolt over here to thread in. And this just helps hold it. If you had two people, you wouldn't need to put the pin in there, I guess. You could go ahead and do it, like that. Bolts here, what we'll do. Put a bolt in here. Help line it up a little bit. What I want to do is drive those dowel pins in a bit if we can. Yeah, it goes in there. It goes in there. The wrench there. Make sure it's drawing it in here. Yeah. All right. So yeah, these locating pins work really good. I actually made one for the front tire because it has bolts, so you have to hold the tire in the air up on the hub until you can get the bolts to go in. So I took a 1/2 inch thread, I took a 1/2 inch bolt and cut it off so that you could thread that into the hub, and then that gives you something to put the rim on to help hold it on, or to help you hold it on in place so that then you can do that. So yeah, this is about it. We have, like I say, there's a series of bolts all the way around inside here. We'll get those put in, and this part will be done, and then the next thing will be to put the flywheel on there. So we will go ahead and do that and then check back later. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is put the flywheel on. And as you notice, we have our locating dowel down here. We got, of course, got 4 studs that it fits onto. So I've got the dowel pointing down here pretty much at 6 o'clock, and that way we can line our holes up a lot easier that way. We also have a 1/2 inch piece of plywood here that's going to help set the thing in there and get it into position. I'm also going to put on some gloves because this thing is quite heavy. Bear with me for a minute. So I'm going to bring this over, set it in here. Actually, set it further back in there and then kind of push it back. Whew. Yeah. That's we're off alignment here. Yeah, okay. Now our plywood has monkeyed us up here. Okay. Yeah, hey, easy peasy, huh? Okay, we're gonna take the plywood out, and then that allows for it to position onto our studs there. I'll put a nut on there for safety. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Oh, hell's bells. So, as we look down here, our locating stud there, then we got our 3 threaded studs. Now what I did is I went ahead and I put grease on this, on the studs and the locating dowel, just to help with assembly of the whole thing. I also put grease, high melting grease, behind the bearing. That's what they say to do on the directions for installing it. So we got it set on there. We'll get ready to bolt it down. Okay, so we have our tab washer, which will fit on here, and that way you have these 4 tabs that you can bend over once the nuts and everything's torqued down. We also have what they call a locating disc. Now this was used on the 880A, which is the live drive clutch. And if we look at our clutch assembly here, this disc fits right over the end of it. And with the tab washer on here as well, we can see that it all fits pretty flush onto the system. Now it's not going to be in positive contact with it, but it does fit on there pretty good around there and everything. And this was used only on the 880A, which, as we learned earlier, is the live drive clutch system. So we'll put the tab washer on there, we'll put the locating disc on there. When I originally took this apart back in 21, the back side, this was all filled with dust in here, and it was dust off of the wearing of your pads, your friction pads. That dust had collected in here, and of course we cleaned it out, so now it's and when we took it apart most recently, it did not have any dust in it. So that is something over time that dust will build up and fill that up. Put our nuts on here. Get our ratchet. this thing in here evenly. I did apply grease to the studs and the locating valve. That will help with assembly and disassembly if we ever have to do that again. And you can tighten these up until the engine starts to turn. And then we'll have to get the torque wrench out here and torque it down, and then we'll bend these tabs down. So now this disc would fit in here like so. And see, we've got movement in the disc. It's free to move now. We'll use an alignment tool when we put the actual clutch together, but that's how that fits in there. And then, yeah, you can see, you probably won't be able to see here. If you take a look in here, we do have clearance back in here between our bearing and the actual end of the flywheel, because the bearing is flush with that face of the flywheel. So there is clearance there at the back of that, and that's what it looks like without the plate in there. So we do have room for movement in there. So we'll go ahead and get the torque wrench out and get set up to torque this thing down. Alright, so these get torqued down to 50 foot-pounds. We're starting here with 30. And we already have it on that. So we'll jump on up to, we'll go to 40. We'll tighten these down. Bunch of board in there. See if that holds him in place. Okay, there's 40. Take it up to 50. Yeah, this worked last time, didn't it? She ain't working this time. There we go. Double check, make sure we're at 50, and we are. And we'll just go around it again, because yeah, it's the thing to do. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, here we go. Holy cow. Take the board out. We can bend these tabs back up here with a pry bar. Whew, that was tough. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking this pry bar and getting under these tabs. We have one there. We take our pry bar in there and we can bend that onto, let me switch hands here. We can just bend that onto the nut. Now you can use a hammer, of course, a punch or a screwdriver or whatever. But this works just as well. Okay, there we go. And that is installation of the 880A flywheel.